This is the part of the presentation that I want to focus on though. Okay? And these are techniques you can use to try and make your proposals much stronger, much more convincing. All right? Remember that your job in writing this is to convince someone. All right? You are actually trying to convince someone. So, the first technique, and the only word that I can think of to describe this, is empathy. I know it sounds weird, right? But when you're writing a proposal, you need to have empathy. You need to understand or get in the head of the person that's reading it. All right? What is that person looking for? What is the NRF looking for? What is the funding body looking for? So get in their heads and say, are they wanting human capital development, or are they wanting a really sexy idea, or are they wanting some kind of method development? You have to get in their head. You have to be empathetic. And so the strict definition of empathy would be the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. But in this sense, I'm trying to get to the point that you want to be able to understand and share the goals or ideas of the funding body, all right, that's going to fund you. You need to know what they want. And that goes back to the structure of the funding proposal and what they're wanting out of it. So it goes back to the call document and the report scorecard. If you read those things, you will have an idea of what the funding body is wanting. But more than that, you also need to think, especially if it's a scientific proposal, you also want to think about your reviewers. You will have an opportunity to select reviewers. You notice there's a little tab at the bottom of the NRF panel where you can actually nominate certain reviewers, right? You can say, I want Lou Ashwell to review my report, or I want Zubair Jinnah to review my report, right? You list their names and their emails, and the NRF will contact them and say, please review this. Okay, and I think it's the same for student funding as well. You can list reviewers and referees. Okay? You want to get in their heads. If you list Lou Ashwell, okay, the chances that the NRF sends your thing to Lou Ashwell are pretty high. And so you want to think, what does he want to see? Right? What does my reviewer want to see in this report? Okay? The one other aspect of empathy that I think is important is also to understand that not everyone who reads your proposal is a geoscientist or even a scientist. Okay? The reviewers may be scientists. The panel at the NRF or the funding body may be scientists, but they may not be in your field. You could have biologists, ecologists, archaeologists, paleontologists sitting on that committee that reviews all the funding applications. So having empathy also means understanding how to write your proposal in a language which is not super complex, that only your supervisor and you can understand. If you do it like that, then you failed already, because the biologist sitting around the table or the non-expert accountant who has to look at your budget won't know what the hell you're talking about. All right? So you need to get good at being able to explain the science you want to do in plain language English, all right? In a way that your boyfriend or girlfriend or grandmother could understand. All right? And that takes a lot of thought. All right? You may know your technical science really well. You may be super good at it. But if you can't explain it to someone who doesn't know anything about your science, then it's going to be hard to get money. So it's always really good to be able to practice explaining your science to non-experts, so that your family would be a good place to start. All right? So that's empathy. Always keep that in mind. Then selling yourself. This is a I would say a skill to get right. Okay? You want to be able to sell yourself, but not oversell yourself. Okay? So this is the best picture I could find for someone overselling themselves, right? Helicopter, fancy suit. Essentially what I'm saying is don't oversell yourself and make yourself this brilliant, brilliant person without the material evidence to back it up. Okay, so in all these proposals, you'll have to submit a CV, right? But in addition to that, you have to write a little biography, a statement about yourself. And in that statement, you get the opportunity to sell yourself, to be able to say, this is who I am, this is what I love doing, this is why I'm really good. Okay? But make sure that that statement where you sell yourself doesn't oversell yourself. There must be that evidence to back it up in your CV. So for instance, you could say, I'm the most brilliant, fantastical researcher in the world, okay? But if you don't have the evidence to back it up in your CV, like maybe you have some papers that you've written up or some attachment of an essay you've written or a paper that you've written, then that's overselling yourself, right? But in the same breath, don't undersell yourself. Don't think, it's a tendency of lots of people to undersell themselves. To say, actually, I'm not really that good. There's lots of people that are kind of better than me. But that's not what the research agency wants to hear, right? They don't want to hear, oh, well, I'm going to be funding this person for 3 years and they're kind of mediocre. They'll do okay. All right? They want to see ambition. They want to see someone who knows what it's like to be successful, but is not overselling themselves. Okay, so try back up your pitch, your personal pitch about yourself with some kind of evidence in your CV. Okay? And even if you have the kind of documentation to back it up, try and add some attachments like work that you've written, for instance, or projects you've been involved on. Okay? Or if you say you have lots of experience, document the experience that you have in your CV. Okay. All right. This is probably the most important thing to think about, and it's really hard to think about this. It's not what, but why. Okay, so when you're thinking about how to sell your science, I want you to think about explaining to the person who's going to read it why your science is important, not what you're going to do. Why is your science important? And I can't explain this better than this man, all right, Simon Sinek. So I'm going to quickly change to this TED Talk, and I want to just play the first 5 minutes of this TED Talk because I think he explains this concept really well. Ignore the title of the TED Talk, okay, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. Think about the difference between what and why in your scientific proposal. Okay, so that is a business perspective on the way I think that you should write proposals, because the research bodies that fund you aren't just buying into what you're going to do, they're buying into you. What makes you different? Why are you different to the 30 other people that applied for the same funding, right? Or what makes your project different to the 100 other projects that were also sent into the NRF, right, for funding? And so a crucial thing that I want you to think about when you structure your proposal, all right, is to start with the why. To think about why you're doing it. So sure, you're going to, I don't know, I'll use an example from Priyanka. You're going to measure isotopes in dinosaurs, dinosaur fossils, right? That's wonderful. But why? What is it going to do to the science, to you, to the community? How is it going to be beneficial? Okay, and that is the statement, the idea that you have to get across first before you explain how you're going to do it and what it is that you're going to do. Okay, so if I take an example that may be accessible to everyone, the dinosaur fossils, right? What Frank is going to do is measure dinosaur fossils. That's cool, but the person next to you could do that too, right? All right. You need to explain why you're the best person to do it, but also why it's important to do it. Why is it better to measure dinosaur fossils than to do the petrography of the Bushveld complex? No offense to those working on the Bushveld complex, okay? But why? Why should they fund the dinosaur project, measuring isotopes in dinosaurs, over the petrography of the Bushveld? Okay? You need to explain why. So is it going to make a fundamental difference to the science? And if you can get that across, if you can convey that what you want to do will make a fundamental difference to the science, then you've won them over. You've explained the why. Okay? So maybe we can return to this at the end, and we can talk about some of your projects and how you could take it from being a what to a why. Right? And not all of the projects that you do are going to win Nobel Prizes, right? So you can't say this is going to change the course of human history for every single project. You're right? I think that would be overselling it. Do you agree? Okay? But you can always think about the what over the why. So why is it important that this project is done? Okay? Because then you will differentiate it from someone who's just saying, this is what I'm doing, not why I'm doing it.